Hello, hello, everybody.
Hello.
I am Brandy Jordan, and I am joined by my beloved Richard.
Hello. Hello. Good to be here.
And we are here to talk about the seasonal report,
Mhm.
the spring equinox. We do our lunar report, and Richard does his weekly transit report, and maybe even coming soon a monthly transit report. But this is a quarter of the year report. This is a report that changes seasons. This is a report that our ancients have talked about in many different ways. The way I like most to talk about it, besides astrologically, is about the earth and the changes that the earth goes through, because our bodies do the same. Yeah, so we're here to talk about that today.
I love spring. It's spring for us, right, in the northern hemisphere, right? So we call it the spring equinox. Of course, if you're below the equator, and our dear friends in Australia, it's the fall equinox. We, of course, will be oriented towards northern hemisphere interpretation. That's what we live in and are part of. But we can agree on the fact that it's a time of balance.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's a time of we've been asleep, and it's time to wake up and stretch our bones a little and allow that dream world to integrate itself in a way that is healthy for the earth and for everything else around it, just like the sprouts do when the wind hits them and the resistance comes, and only the strong sprouts survive, the ones who can put their roots down deep and who are viable. And so this is what I believe, and we talk about that is being asked of us right now, is to come out of our slumber slowly, to see what actually exists here, what minerals are around you, what's important, what gets to stay, what gets to go, so that you can grow.
Yeah, absolutely. These axis points of transition, the equinoxes and the solstice. And I think you described it really beautifully. And I feel like it's just an opportunity to connect with that, with Mother Nature in that sense. We can see it right out our window here. These buds will be bursting through pretty soon. And so when we look at the equinox, it is happening. We're going to pull the chart up on March 19th, just after 9 p.m. on Mountain Standard Time. So you can adjust your
time accordingly.
Let's go ahead and pull the chart up.
Okay.
Let's take a look at it.
All right. As we're looking at this one, did you want to pull up the other one to set the stage, to set the framework?
Yes, I do. And there we go. That's where we were trying to get to. So here is the bodygraph on the left and the astrological wheel. And I guess for some of our new viewers who haven't seen us yet, we are human design practitioners. And so that's certainly our grounding. But I do love to bring the astrology into it.
Absolutely.
I feel like I use astrology like a photographer uses lighting. We have such an ancient history, mythology, and tradition of the frequency of the planets and their relationship to each other from astrology. And so I love that we're bringing that together, and we use that to kind of hone in on these gates and lines.
Absolutely.
Sort of that background frequency that we can pull from astrology. But here we have the chart for that March 19th. And what I was going to pull forward was just that I think when we look at patterns, all of this information describes patterns. And it's patterns within patterns within patterns. Right? We have a solar cycle pattern, we have a lunar cycle pattern. Each of the planets have each of their patterns. And here we're talking about a seasonal pattern with the equinox. But I think we can go back to the Rave New Year chart and just mention that chart, because it was quite extraordinary.
It was. And because mapping is so important, as a voyager, if you're on a voyage, knowing where you're at exactly on the map helps you feel safe. It helps you trust your surroundings and your vessel. It helps so many different ways. And so I think that, as you say, these patterns within patterns, we are looking at and finding where we are at in the spiral of it all. And so looking back at the Rave New Year is important.
Yeah. And so this was the beginning of the solar cycle, according to the Human Design System. And what we were talking about in that report, and it's in the library if anybody wants to go back to it, but the highlight was that we had this channel of survival and individual circuitry, and there were 9 individual activations out of 13.
Yes.
It is just all about the self-empowerment possible within the body graph.
Absolutely. And what you mentioned and referred to, survival, it's the channel of perfected form of behavior is what equals survival. And this was what this year invited us into.
And so there's been, as we've been going through our lunar cycle, we're seeing this emphasis on the individual circuitry. And I think that's extremely important to this particular pattern.
Absolutely.
We are
how supported we are.
Yeah. And I think it's really helpful to be aware of that when we're looking at the world right now and the chaos that we're all living through on so many levels, that we're being invited to experience who we are.
And to really anchor ourselves. I've been having this in some of the containers I've been holding. I've been hearing myself say over and over again, it's about looking and seeing the chaos for actually what it is without projecting. Can you see a tree without naming it a tree? Can you see you without naming it a you, and actually see what exists? See that there is something chaotic about it. Regulate your nervous system, and then see what comes from the wisdom of your body in the expression. So, the formula being chaos, then nervous system regulation, and then expression.
That's beautifully shared, and step by step, and that ties right into following one's authority.
Right.
So as we talk about these transits, we're talking about the weather. We're talking about what we're seeing in the world through people, experiences coming to us, and being aware of how that's triggering us, particularly at a deep inner core level. That modality of steps you just laid out can be very supportive right now, because it's very when we have this much individual circuitry, we're talking about deep within us, at our very core of this incarnation and this life we're in. We're talking about the nervousness that can come with that. Coming up with a unique inspiration and a creatively way to express that is a challenge.
And it's not going to come out if you're dysregulated. It just like it's a volcano, and the way that it comes out is determined by how regulated, how stiff the rest of that volcano is. Is everything going to blow apart, or is it going to make new land?
Well, and when you're regulated and following your personal authority, you're in the right place, whether you're feeling an invitation to act on these transits or not. And that's what we want to just make clear at the onset, that this is not about advice in terms of what to do. It's about what's happening.
And how to watch it.
To watch it, regulate, follow authority, and be strong, knowing that we're being tickled by our inspiration right now. And I think we're going to talk about that with the, let's go ahead and get back to the equinox chart here. We've been in this world of Pisces. And here with the equinox, this is when the sun finally reaches 0 degrees Aries right here. But we still have a lot of Piscean energy going on. We had quite a pileup of planets in Pisces there. Now, Mercury has moved out of that. And as we orient ourselves to the body graph, we're going to see some patterns here as well. Now, Chiron, Mercury, and the North Node are all in gate 51.
All in gate 51.
And this is how we're seeing, and the only defined channel in the chart is the channel of initiation.
And it is the ego power to withstand shock, to continue to see what love sees. That is what this channel is. And it's inviting us and giving us the power, I think, through healing through our wounds, allowing something new to come through, allowing the shock to show us more of what love sees.
Now, the equinox always happens at 0 degrees Aries and gate 25 line 2. But the reason we have this channel that you're beautifully describing right now is because, well, we've had the South Node there for quite a while. Now we're going to get a shift in the nodal axis on May 10th. But we're going to see a tremendous amount of activity from this channel that you're describing, with a lot of planets. Because we have the sun here right now. Neptune is going to be moving into gate 25, as will Venus and Mars over the coming month are all going to be passing. So gate 25 is going to have a steady drumbeat of planets interacting with the North Node in gate 51.
Yeah, Neptune inviting it to see what love sees in the depths of its watery emotions.
Mhm.
Venus inviting it to see what love sees in the chaos of its desirous nature.
Mhm.
Mars also the same way. So being initiated into a higher sense of direction in all of these characters in my game,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's really good. And again, that's going to be a pattern we're going to keep talking about in each one of our reports. But as we go back to this chart, and let's talk about the imprinting here of this equinox chart, and to think about that too, that it is a seasonal chart.
Right.
And so we're really talking about between now, the start of our spring, until
Mhm.
the summer solstice.
That's right.
Right, when the sun will move into Cancer. So that's I really just kind of want to frame that we're trying to describe in this chart the quality of this seasonal period and how that might relate to the
Mhm.
larger story or someone else's individual journey. But it definitely starts with this channel of initiation.
It does. And I love how you bring in the planets, the celestial bodies. And I really like to bring in the earth and what the earth is doing and how the earth is always showing us exactly how to be in these seasons. And I just love how these charts kind of are the interpreter between the two.
And so let's pull out some of these, well, again, aspects, patterns we can see from the wheel, starting with the fact that even though the sun moved into Aries, Neptune still in Pisces, they're only 2.5 degrees apart. So this is certainly a conjunction. So even though the sun has the fire of Aries ruled by Mars, Neptune is still in her home sign.
Yeah.
In Pisces, and so it still brings this dreamlike quality, but
You
it's
said
a real
underwater fire the other day.
well, it was the other day because we had Mars and Uranus square at the
Oh,
new
yeah.
moon in Pisces, and that was like an Mars Uranus square, which is
Yeah.
so electric and
Yeah.
so intense and so hot, but it was under this incredible Piscean
Piscean energy.
world of planets. But again, we're in a different energy because now the sun is in the fire, cardinal
Right.
fire, in spring. But that I just want to say that Piscean pull, we're not out of that dream world,
Right.
is what I want to say about that.
Right.
Due to the Sun Neptune conjunction, we also have a Venus Saturn conjunction in Pisces.
Yes.
And we'll go into the gates and again refine the deconstruction of that energy down. But we can see that this Venus wanting the love, the passion, the harmony, it's joined up with the planet of structure and rigidity, which is in Pisces. And Saturn can bring some sense of scaffolding, right? It's in the dream world, but it's through our imaginations and our unique creative ideas that can set the scaffolding with which Saturn can build on in that sense. Right. Now, Saturn itself happens to have moved into gate 63, line 1, which is one of the funniest jokes in the wheel that we have the logical head pressure in the gate of Pisces. Right. Now, that doesn't answer a few questions about why is the world so confusing.
Yes.
That's another story. But let's just say that there is that element. So I just want to mention that Piscean energy of the dream world. It's like we're in Aries, we're in the first day of spring on the 19th, but yet there's still a lot of work being done.
Yeah.
While particularly Venus and Mars and Aquarius will be moving through, but as Mars, Venus finally get into Aries, then again we're going to get an extra energetic shift to the
I hear you
planet.
Talking about spring fever, you know, how everything in the earth at this time starts to rumble a little bit, but it's still raining.
Yeah, and it's still cold.
And it's still cold,
it's
but we
still
all feel this push, this something inside that's ready to go outside and see the sun.
Yeah, and that is definitely happening. So just to highlight the gates then, so that Venus is currently in gate 37, as we've talked about in our other reports. Most of the gates of the solar plexus are in Pisces, except for gate 63 where Saturn was. But yeah, with Venus here in gate 37, line 5, where the line of love, in the channel of community. And so Saturn, so as we're looking at whatever this dream world is bringing up, whatever these self-empowering ideas of creation that we want to express, that we may be stimulated by these transits, that Venus, it may, because it's in a tribal gate, right? It may have to do with the Saturn structure and the Venusian desires to have harmony within relationships. There could be structural changes happening within your network or within your community.
What is love? The heretical expression of love.
Yeah, because
individuated.
I think it's with this individual journey that all of these charts keep sharing with us, that may cause restructuring
Right.
in our community of somehow,
That's
right?
right.
To be able to express ourselves
Mhm.
in our unique way. So I think that Venus-Saturn conjunction with, as I mentioned, gate 37 and gate 63 is important.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to save
And
this, I feel like, because
okay,
that
good.
is in the middle of the Venus Saturn. And then down here, we have this conjunction forming between Jupiter and Uranus. Now,
Mhm.
that's a very big conjunction that's coming up. A lot of talk on the internet about this because it is significant, it is important, and it's happening April 20th.
Mhm.
And I think that's important to mention now, just because I think all of us are feeling like that's going to be another indicator as we move into spring and this self-empowering idea of my expression in the
Right.
world that is what it is. There may be something to come to light
Mhm.
for folks on that particular conjunction. And also with that, I just want to mention we have the eclipses coming up.
Right. In
Okay,
between that.
right, March 25th, which we'll
Mhm.
do a segment on, and then also that's the
April 8th.
yeah, it's March 25th
Mhm.
in Libra. We have
Yes.
the lunar eclipse, and then on April 8th, we have the total solar eclipse for the US here, but
Mhm.
that'll happen in Aries.
Yes.
Okay, so I mentioned those two eclipses and this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction coming because these are key inflection points that are
Mhm.
right in front of us in the
Mhm.
coming month.
Mhm.
And again, that's all going to be happening within the backdrop of the channel of initiation.
Right.
And nestled in the middle of these aspects we're deconstructing here is this Mercury Chiron nodal axis conjunction in gate 51.
Yes. So let me kind of set the stage a little
Mhm.
bit. So we talked about Venus and Saturn,
Mhm.
and what they're doing with our networks and finding really the truth,
Mhm.
the logical truth, right,
Mhm.
of the way that we give and receive love
Mhm.
within our networks and
Mhm.
how that works for us.
Mhm.
And there may be a change in structure. And then on the other side of that, there's this Jupiterian, Uranian, explosive. I mean, Uranian is electric and
Mhm.
Jupiter is explosive. So if you can just imagine that visual on that side
Mhm.
in gate 2 and in gate 23,
Mhm.
right?
Well, that's where they are right now. When that conjunction,
Oh,
when the
yes.
exact conjunction happens, that they're both going to be in gate 23, line 4.
Both going to be in
Right,
23
but I
line
just want to
4.
emphasize that the Jupiter is in gate 2 right now, and of
Right.
course Uranus is in 23,
In 23.
line 2. Yeah.
And so that is like the nest. That is like the
Mhm.
outside framework of where this initiation is happening, this
Mhm.
shock and explosion, and this new way of giving and receiving love within community that
Mhm.
feels more true
Mhm.
for you, being initiated into that. And that's the nest.
Mhm.
And now what's in the nest there?
Yeah, and that is Mercury being the planet of intellect and communication, talking about what this experience of this initiation we've been going through,
Right.
right? I mean, this healing process of Chiron, because it was just a few weeks ago that Chiron was exactly conjunct the North Node.
Right.
And it's in that individual circuitry in the sign of Aries self-expression. So it's just the chart is indicating deep healing, possibly for anyone that's been experiencing that the aspects have been very supportive to go on that journey, to go into the dark cave that we may be avoiding, to look at those shadows, to look at our past.
Because conjunctions are two things coming together that are
Mhm.
opening for something else that we don't know yet. And so the two things that are coming together are a door and your healing. Is that right?
I think so, yeah, and it also may have to do with forgiveness too. Depending on stories from life that we're talking about, it definitely involves that topic of personal self-healing, acceptance, healing of others. And what really has emphasized that has been Pluto up here and gate 60 in the body graph, which was
Bringing
been
the
going
pressure
on
to
for a very
change.
long time. And again, Pluto will continue to be part of the story because it's going to go forward into gate 41, but then back up into gate 60 again. So we're going to be dealing with Pluto in gate 60 all the way till November,
Okay.
off and on, before it's completely out of gate 60 for this orbit and firmly planted into Aquarius. But the planet of death, rebirth, and transformation in the gate of limitations, individual circuitry, also called acceptance.
The pressure to change, the pressure for mutation, the pressure to explore more and to have more than what's actually here already.
And so that is taking us again, offering the opportunity to go into the Plutonian underworld of our psychological aspects. This can take some really deep work. It's not something that necessarily is easy. It certainly takes support.
Yes. It takes allies, it takes
Exactly.
tools.
And bravery. But again,
bravery.
we're talking about the gate
You
of
got
shock
it.
here.
Yeah.
51 is the gate of courage.
We are in
So
doubt.
that's why we've been sharing that there's so much support available if
Right.
this initiation is correct for someone. And so with that limitation of gate 60 and Pluto there, you know, this the tagline, you know, the first step in transcendence is acceptance. Yeah, surrender and acceptance. And where can that go? Well, it has the expansive power of Jupiter,
Yes.
where our magnetic monopole is to accept and be receptive. And then that Uranus in gate 23, the voice of individual creative self-expression.
I love it. I love gate 2 is I think in its highest expression, just like water is, water finds itself all the time. Water does nothing but search until it finds itself again. And that is what I feel like gate 2 is with this magnetic monopole. Being able to receive the magnetics of the field, to follow that interior feminine into what is for you and who is for you, that 23. That being able to, I think we saw that it's going to be, if it's not already, it's going to be in this gate that is the most selfish of all individual channels.
Well, that's where the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is going to happen in 23 line 4.
Line 4.
Called fragmentation.
Yes.
Which is
I'm going to separate myself from you.
it's got the
I'm not going to assimilate.
Yeah, it's the rigidity of the line 4 externalizing no matter what the cost.
Yeah.
And it's so it's sort in that sense a difficult and demanding nature to some extent because it just has to get it out. But that's what's coming. You see, that's where this individual circuitry that you just can't look away from in these charts. Like there's deep mutative process happening if we can be aware, to surrender, to see what's coming up. I just keep saying to everyone, if we're alive right now, there is a very important reason that you're living and breathing in this really chaotic time.
Well, this may be kind of it's a perfect time to say it, is that we are an interregnum species, an in-between. There was something before and there's something coming after, and we are here doing this work right now. Not only are we doing it, but we're not alone. The whole cosmos is doing it. Not only are we awakening and being able to handle more voltage, but so is the cosmos, so are the planets, so are the solar flares. So is our planet itself is heating up, not just ours, but every single one of them. And so we are all being able to handle more voltage, and it's like we are preparing the vessel for what's coming. And mutating and mutating and mutating. So, you know, I know our parents and their parents and their parents have always passed something down because that was the right thing to do. Our generation is here to shatter that. When I say generation, I guess I mean few hundred years generation, but these humans from 1781 to 2027, that's a generation in my opinion.
For sure.
We're here to mutate. And so this surrender to the direction of the field and then say what is true when you get there. And get regulated. And what I mean by regulated is heart-centered, is seeing what love sees, is a compassionate place of expression, even if you don't agree or you have judgments. What does your open heart have to say? Express from, that's regulated in my opinion. And so we're learning how to do that. So when this solar plexus mutation happens and these children are born with just pure awareness, we have done the work for our future generations to for it to be easier to have open-hearted, compassionate sight.
To be their truth. Won't have to be so hard to fight for personal individual truth. Maybe.
Right, because we're being given and endowed this courage, these explosive moments of introversion, to be able to have courage to go inside, because most of us have courage to go outside, but that's not what's needed anymore.
Right. I really appreciate all of how you're sharing that. And again, when you talked about this, well, you know, this energy, this expansive Jupiterian energy with Uranus. Now that Jupiter itself is within 6 minutes of a degree, an exact half square with the sun.
Mhm.
And I think that also just adds that idea of that pressure, that fuel,
Yeah.
but the connection as well, that we're talking gate 2 and gate 25, line
Yeah.
2. Line 2 is the
Oh.
line of the existentialist,
Yeah.
right? It is the pure natural
Yeah.
form of
Innocent.
innocence,
I am
being in the
here
now.
now, and I didn't ask to be.
Yeah.
What's here and what
Right.
can I love on?
Yeah, being in that moment with that
Yeah.
sense of innocence in that way, sense of
Yeah.
acceptance,
Yeah.
even though we're getting this challenge from Pluto in the 2. There's a message in there, and I also just want to mention that Pluto in gate 60 for this chart, it is in a very tight opposition to the moon in gate 31.
Mhm.
So here we have the gate of influence.
And I love this. This is my moon,
Mhm,
and it is in line 1,
mhm,
and it is like no influence. It's just the door opener. And what I've learned about influence in that way is that it's not about influencing for the purpose of influence. It's about following your own direction of self and being able to speak it
mhm.
and say, this is the direction I'm going in, not because you want someone to follow you, but because you know what direction you're going in now.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, this is a time to prepare for that,
Yeah.
to be in that,
Yeah.
to appreciate that. And so, yeah, again, I think if we pull together the overall theme, I think, of this equinox with all that we've shared, really, it is such a potent time to
Mhm.
ground, to go
Yeah.
inward, to appreciate that Piscean dream world of imaginations and my
Right.
deepest creativity, whatever someone can connect with on that level through
Mhm.
writing, drawing, singing, walks in nature, really connecting with Mother Earth as in the Northern Hemisphere, we start to see spring bursting forth.
Yeah.
I think a connection with that at a deep physical level is
So
going to be really supportive as we move into these potent
Mhm.
events we talked
Yeah.
about, the eclipses and this
Yeah.
conjunction, this rave new year that started off with a real
Yeah.
bottle rocket of individual
Yeah.
circuitry.
You know, a tool that I've used before is, and maybe I'd invite you guys to do it too, is to go outside and find a plant, find a something that is growing. And I would check in with it every day
Mhm.
because I knew that that thing was surrendered as
Mhm.
itself.
Mhm.
And I wanted to watch and see what that thing did in the seasons. And so sometimes it died, sometimes it lived, sometimes it grew, sometimes it didn't. And so it was just a beautiful teacher for me in this time
Yeah.
of, watching it be strong in the wind, or watching it wilt with too much water,
Mhm.
or watching it dry up a little because it doesn't have enough,
Yeah.
all of these things. And then applying that to my own life
Mhm.
was a beautiful gift. And so I
Yeah.
think that connection is pretty powerful.
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
What a great suggestion for everyone. And is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Mm. Um, No, well, maybe is another anchor is this 57, the south node, this thing that
Yeah.
we've been given,
Uh-huh.
this ability to intuitively, to be here now is to know when to be courageous.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because courage is blind if you're not present.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of courage in this chart.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Got to stay
So,
balanced with this nodal opposition
right,
and gate 57.
right.
Back to that ancient instinctual intuition.
Right,
You
that
know?
of what is it that I get to point my arrow at, not just indiscriminately shooting arrows.
Yeah, very nice. Glad you brought that in here
Mhm.
to ground us as we close out
Yeah.
here.
All right.
Wow, that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, and thanks for watching, and we'll be
Mhm.
back with the lunar eclipse
We
on
will.
March 25th.
On March 25th, we
But
will be back.
yeah, enjoy spring, everybody.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.